Are we going to listen to, I don't know, science? And use science to reinvigorate our economy with new job opportunities and preserve our delicate planet for future generations? Or are we going to plunder it for short-term profit? Are we going to have an economic world system that gives opportunity to all, or one that gives accumulation to the few? Are we going to live show our kids a world of division, hate, and fear, or are we going to embrace a future of love and inclusion and hope? And if these things weren't enough, and it really is a shame that we don't have a rational, the fakest thing about our show was we had rational Republicans. Because I'm telling you,
I don't know. John couldn't.
this is bad writing.
Really, really bad writing. It's a fair fables, actually.
You know, I putting all. We need to be having a discussion with people who don't feel exactly the way we feel. That's the invisible carnage of this travesty of a Republican nominee. Because we're not having the discussions we need to have with people who don't necessarily feel exactly the same way. We're having a discussion with someone who might pull his pinky off and light it like a cigarette. We wouldn't be surprised. That's a weird image.
That's a weird image.
That's a very weird image. That's a very, very weird image.
And you compare a con man
Right, which
to Hillary, who, and I always want to remind young people who so invigorated the conversation, who were with Bernie early on. Hillary out Bernie early on, 20 years ago. She's been fighting for all the things you've heard, for health care, the children's health insurance program, civil rights, women's access to women's health care, human rights, LGBT rights. She has been at the forefront of these issues, and I think there are some young people who may be cynical, who can blame them, watching the craziness in the media now, and they need to be reminded
a lot.
And most of all, I want to thank you, because politics aren't just obviously a game or entertainment or a fun place to set a TV show. Politics are the way we create our moral vision, and it has always taken the people to hold this country up to its spectacular promise. So I really, truly want to thank you, because what you're doing is really, really important, and every vote matters. And thank you for understanding that you don't just get a democracy; you got to make it every day. So thank you.
That sounds a lot like how we talk on the show.
Then the pinky thing, that was really good.
Yeah.
I want to point out that Jim Lang is here. He's wearing a shirt that says "Vote for Jim Lang," and a name tag that identifies him as Jim Lang. I humbly suggest a shirt that just says "Vote for me." Then you lose the name tag. So, anyway, I'm Josh Malina. You might know me from the later years of West Wing that weren't quite as good. That's the sound I like. I like to bathe in that sound.
They cheered in other places.
I'm very excited to be here because I am I'm from New York, but I'm a long-time now California Democrat. And I have realized over the years that I can't have any impact on the general election as a California Democrat unless I leave town. So that's why I'm here. We got to come to where the action is, to the
Yeah, he
great
said that on
state of
Twitter last
Ohio. California's already in the bag for Hillary. We're blue through and through. Ohio is a little more interesting, and that makes it a little bit more exciting. And that's why I feel the energy in all these rooms. Ohio is a classic battleground state, right? It's a bellwether or a litmus test. It's a swing state, and those are the few states that really have the opportunity to determine who the next president is. I don't know a tremendous amount about electoral politics, but I do know this fact. I believe the last Republican presidential candidate who won the general without carrying Ohio was Abraham Lincoln. I mean, think about that.
Who was pretty much
okay,
a Dem-
so that of course was in
pretty much a Democrat.
1860, which would make it 48 years after the great city of Sandusky was founded, and possibly named after Polish fur trader Jacob Sandusky. Yes, I did. I did Google.
He's good.
I can tell you about the last two towns too. I will even count. What did I want to say? I like the term battleground state because it's exactly what this is, a battle, right? This isn't friendly, this isn't social, this is a battle. And as Brad and Mary mentioned, and Leslie, it's a stark battle between a woman who has a tremendous amount of experience and wisdom and composure, and a man who demonstrates none of the traits necessary to be the President of the United States and the Commander-in-Chief of our armed forces. It's a stark choice. There's a woman who has dedicated herself to compassionate endeavors, as has been mentioned already, to helping get decent health care for children, to fighting for women's rights, fighting so that the average American can improve their lot. And then there's a man on the other side who, I don't know if he has any policy positions. He's got a slogan, "Make America Great Again." That seems to be it. And he seems to me to have dedicated his life to self-aggrandizement and self-enrichment. So it's a pretty easy choice, I think, and yet here we are. It's a ball game, and nowhere more so than where we stand right now here in Ohio. So I just wanted to say again, thank you for doing what you're doing. We know that on a good day, 60% of people show up, or 65% of people show up for an election. It's embarrassing. It's a national embarrassment, but it also means there's a huge number of people that can be reached. And I think it's great that Leslie was saying you're going to go knock on doors right after this. I'll bet it is true. That sounds intimidating to me, but I'll bet the truth is that once you start interacting with people, you find out they're people, and they care about the same issues, and they can be reached. So we're here mainly to thank you guys and to rev you up and to tell you that we appreciate everything you are doing. So get out there. And I'm sure we're all registered to vote, but those that aren't can go to iwillvote.com. We want to encourage people to do that by the October 11th so that they can get to the early voting on October 12th. And let's go ahead and win this thing.
Thank
How you guys doing?
Great. Hey.
Good. I'm tired. One of the things that strikes me about this whole campaign and the way the media addresses it. Hillary got sick recently.
Yeah.
And she had pneumonia. Has anyone here had pneumonia?
Yeah.
How much fun was it?
Not fun.
I've had pneumonia 4 times and tried to
3
work
times or
during
so.
it. I was sent home. She was criticized for not announcing that she had pneumonia to the world 3 hours earlier. What's striking to me, I remember how hard it was to even get up in the morning, much less try to work. What's striking to me is that she was unwilling to give up her agenda that day. She was unwilling to not fulfill her obligations. She was going to the 9/11 memorial, a place that was very, very personal to all of us, but specifically to her because she was the center of New York at that time. It was fought very hard for the first responders there and for the families of the victims and so on. And yet she went and had a little episode, and that's what they focus on. No one focused on the fortitude, the courage, the strength to keep going through that. You can clap. I so admire admire her for that, and that she does it every single day, trying to put out her message. I was here last week in Ohio, did 2 days of this. This is the first day of this particular trip. I've given six or seven talks, and I am exhausted. I don't know how she does it. She obviously has a message that she has to get out there and refuses to give up. And that's someone that I admire and respect. I just want to read you something. Cincinnati Enquirer. You guys all know about this?
Yes.
Trump brands himself as an outsider untainted by special interests, but we see a man utterly corrupted by self-interest. His narcissistic bid for the presidency is more about making himself great than America. Trump tears our country and many of its people down with his words so that he can build himself up. What else are we left to believe about a man who tells the American public that he alone can fix what ails us?
Just like he made Atlantic City great again.
We failed at that too.
Not so much.
I think about an episode of The West Wing called Proportional Response. Does anybody remember? It's when I realized we had a great show. I was barely in the episode. But it was about President Bartlett, whose personal doctor, was killed in a terrorist attack over Syria. Everyone's nodding their head. So you all remember it. And you remember that it was about what we don't see in the public. We see the president giving speeches after he's decided what he's going to do, or the press conference, or on CNN. We don't see the personal, human responses to these kinds of crises, especially when it affects him or her personally. And we saw President Bartlett get irate, viscerally upset, angry, enraged. He wanted to nuke Syria, right? But he had really good people around him. The wonderful John Spencer, who we dearly miss, playing Leon Barry, and others, the Joint Chiefs. Find a way to bring him back to reality, sanity, and rationality. Colin Powell, someone who we all respect on some level, a Republican, yes, but was recently labeled the last reasonable man by Time magazine. He calls Trump a national disaster, an international pariah. This is from Colin Powell. Trump's chief military advisor is General Michael Flynn, who Colin Powell refers to as a right-wing nutjob who has abused his staff at the Defense Intelligence Agency. Imagine this scenario when someone has a personal response, and Trump has a personal response to breathing. He would be offended if you burped in front of him. He has promised to blow, if an Iranian in a rowboat gives the finger to a U.S. sailor, he will blow them out of the water. He's threatened to use nuclear weapons, the first president in my lifetime who's done so. It's unimaginable to think of this person in the White House. When I talk to young people about voting, a lot of them are apathetic. A lot of them are emotionally attached to Bernie. I think about the 2000 election, when Al Gore, who wasn't spectacularly charismatic, let's say. He was the chemistry teacher that put you to sleep. And after Bill Clinton and that kind of incredible presidency of peace and prosperity and charisma and yes, scandal, Al Gore seemed like a bore to rhyme it. And a lot of people, and I wasn't excited, and I was even thinking of protest voting for Ralph Nader, until someone on the set of The West Wing named Bradley Whitford yelled at me. So I changed my mind. But this election reminds me of that election, because for whatever reason, and Hillary freely admits she's not her husband, she's not Barack Obama, she doesn't have the personality of a star. She's Joe Frazier, she comes at you, she doesn't stop coming. She's a, I don't know if a woman likes this, but she's a bull. She will fight and fight and fight and fight. And kids, at this time, you just want to remind them of what happened in the 2000 election, the ramifications and consequences of George Bush, the invasion of Iraq, the bankruptcy of our Treasury, the Supreme Court, the economy falling off the cliff, and so on and so forth. And you have to remind these kids of the consequences and fallout of allowing Donald Trump to get to the White House. It's so important. Change. This is what I remind myself, and especially talking to young people. When I was born, Rosa Parks had sat on the bus 1 year before I was born. Women's rights, which has always existed, was barely perceivable. The civil rights movement was barely beginning. So much change has happened during my lifetime, but it's incremental, and it comes from the inside out, following the movement of people. And those leaders that listen to the movement of people are eventually called our greatest leaders. Hillary Clinton has been fighting these fights for 45 years. She is a public servant. She is not, what's the word?
Can it hash in?
She's not a
Evil narcissist?
narcissist.
She's not a dilettante.
She's not a dilettante. Thank you.
She's a
Keep coming.
professional.
Keep coming.
How many syllables?
Point being that the choice is so obvious, but these young people who are on the fence, who are uninterested, they're the ones we have to get. If in every election in our lifetime, if everyone who was allowed to registered, and if everyone who registered voted, a Democrat would win every single election. And so it's these young people that we have to really get at. You guys are the ones that are going to do that. I can't tell you how we all talk about how moved we are, meeting you individually and in groups. Just the intelligent faces. This is America, and you guys are fighting for it, and we love you for it. So thank you very much. You guys are going to elect the first woman president.